You've heard about Web 3.0, maybe about the NFTs, the non-fungible tokens, huge amounts of opportunities for you as an entrepreneur. And we're going to give you one of the best to help you understand that today. An interview we did with Brian Fanzo, a guy doing 365 days of minting NFTs, putting them together and showing you how to do it. You're going to love this episode. So join us for this episode of Stark Raving Entrepreneurs. Welcome to Stark Raving Entrepreneurs, where you discover how to achieve your goals and dreams, getting the freedom you want, all while living voluntarily, peacefully, and with a live and let live lifestyle. Welcome to the Build Your Business Challenge, where you're going to get some information you need to know in today's crazy world, 2022. In these sessions, you're going to get to discover how you can not only survive, but also thrive using some powerful tools that are out there now and some techniques that are called Web3. If you go, what is that? Well, we're going to tell you in just a bit what it is and the good that's available for you. To help you understand and to determine what is best for you and your entrepreneurial ventures, we have invited 5 of the top players in the Web3 space in the world to join us this week. They're reaching business owners like you on a regular basis through their podcast, YouTube channels, and personal appearances. And I'm your host today, Terry Brock, and I'm joined by my co-host, Gina Carr. Gina, thanks for being with us today.
Well, I am delighted. I am so excited to share this information with our community, with our tribe, and folks who are interested in this, because this is the future. And ready or not, here it comes. We have experienced Web 1, Web 2, and Web 3 is right on our heels.
Yes, indeed. And today we're very excited because we're going to be talking with our special guest, Brian Fanzo. He's one of the first people to do anything with NFTs, and he was the first to launch a daily podcast where he talks about NFTs. And yes, we're going to explain what in the world an NFT is. And he's been minting, that means creating one, every day. And he's planning to do that for 365 days. We're going to talk with him about that and find out what he's learning and what information he has to share with you. He started November 11th, 2021, last year, and has been creating these new coins, minting them, they call it, every day. His plans are to continue that right through November 11th this year. We'll hear a little bit more about that. And you want to be a part of that. We're going to give you an inside scoop as to how you can listen to what's going on. That is more and more. He's going to tell us about that and the benefits of NFTs. And he'll also tell us, hey, what the heck an NFT is. And you're going to like that. And remember, this is not financial advice. As Brian Fanzo says so well, you have to go out and do your own damn research. Okay. We are not financial advisors. We are not offering any financial advice. We're not qualified. And we wouldn't do that anyway. You got to do it on your own and get really good, competent financial advisors yourself in whatever you're doing. But we do recommend strongly that you get education in this area. So no financial advice, but lots of educational advice. And we recommend that you look into what's going on and see it. And yes, by the way, this session is being recorded. Hey, it's 2022. Come on. We're going to do that. However, you want to be here and participate live. So that way you can put your questions in the sessions here. So send us a text question. That'll be good in the chat or wherever you're getting this. And we'll be able to handle those and work with you. Well, Gina, I am excited for this kickoff episode and particularly looking forward to talking with my friend and fellow member of the National Speakers Association, Brian Fanzo. What would you like to share about Brian to help the entrepreneurs who are joining us today?
Well, certainly I'd like to share that it's been fantastic to see Brian recently in person, in real life, at different events around the planet. And I am a big fan of his podcast. I'm a binge listener, absolutely, to Brian's podcast, NFT 365. It's really a fantastic resource for what's going on in the world of Web3, especially NFTs and tokenization, which is what I'm really passionate about, because I see how it allows people to really think about belonging to and supporting creators and organizations in a whole different way. So I'm really eager to hear from Brian. And yes, as Terry said, post your questions in the chat if you'd like. And then after Terry and I have asked a few questions, we will come to you guys. If you'd like to unmute and ask your own questions, that would be great as well. So let's get started here. Brian, tell us, just to give us a little explanation, what is Web3 and what are NFTs?
Sure. No. Well, thanks for having me. Excited to be here. And it was great being able to see in person at not only one event, but a couple of events, which is, part of this, nice transition we're moving towards.
Yes, indeed.
If you think of, Web 1 was really, the emergence of the internet web page kind of static content. Web 2 was the content and social platforms, which we're all very familiar with, from Facebook to Instagram. And then Web 3 is really powered by the technology called the blockchain. And the technology really doesn't matter in the sense of like, what does the blockchain matter, other than it's a decentralized ledger that allows us to really authenticate information, data, and even actions in ways that we never have been able to have before. And that authenticating of data and information, what it does is it allows us to really, kind of prove something is actually what it says it is in a digital way. And when I think of Web3, it's actually much more of a mindset shift than it is a technology shift. So for anyone that's like, I don't want to learn new technology, I actually believe it wholeheartedly in it being much more of a mindset shift. And the mindset shift is actually a shift back in power and control to us as the users and us as the creators. If you think about that in our day-to-day lives for the last 15 years, we've been giving up our data and our information to the platforms and those that have been supplying us, free Instagram, right? We've heard there's an adage that if you're getting something for free, you're paying with it with your data. Well, we were always kind of just okay with that until I think we started to recognize not only how important and how valuable our data is, but also what would it look like if we could control our data and there was a way for things to be authenticated yet still be something that we owned. And so for those that are, as we kind of move forward, and this is like where I get excited, like a lot of the buzz around NFTs at the moment are monkey photos and a lot of the things that you're going to hear like kind of like in the news where people are making hundreds of thousands of dollars. But what I get excited about is like, what if we were able to authenticate things like our job history, a marriage license, our driver's license? We were able to actually have those authenticated online. And that's a massive shift. And what I mean by authenticated is the way the blockchain works is once something is minted there, it's permanent, it's immutable, you can't edit it, you can't change it. It has a hash. It says on this day it was created by this person at this or this address at this person. And what is beautiful about that is it does allow us to add some authenticity. And I'll put it in the best example I can get. When you look at someone's LinkedIn profile, do we even know if any of that information is correct? Like we're hoping they went to Harvard, or we're hoping that they were that project manager at that job, but really there was no way to prove that. And if we were proving it, it's a lot of manual processes. In this Web3 world, imagine if every time you got a job, you were given a token, and that token was minted on the blockchain. It was something in your wallet. And then whenever someone looked up, they said, how long did someone work there? That information is automatically pulled and it's all validated because it's all been put on to the blockchain. So for me, it adds, there is a layer of transparency, but the mindset shift is, what if all of these things were kind of automated and authenticated for us? Then we get to decide what information is shared and where. So for those that are, from a privacy perspective, from a controlling of our data information perspective, but also from a scale perspective, because one of the things that I'm probably most excited about with Web3 is it removes the borders around a lot of the things that we do, from interacting and transactions, because we can use cryptocurrency, from even collaboration or community gathering. We're able to really, remove a lot of the limitations that have, existed in our, kind of platform-based world over these past couple of years.
Yes, that's exactly what's been happening, and great example, great explanation of it. So one of the things that I know scares people a little bit about Web3, to your point about the technology, but also about security issues. I know you have a really strong background in security, being with the Department of Defense for over a decade and helping them with security issues. What do you see as the number one security threat to people in this Web3 world?
Well, yeah, so I did work a decade out of the Pentagon here in Washington, D.C. I had the highest civilian security clearance that you could get. So I did a lot in cybersecurity, 3 trips to Iraq, 2 to Afghanistan. I've been to 76 countries. And the thing about security is that, right now in like our Web 2 world, a lot of our security is us, with our password, and then the reset of that, and those who manage kind of the master log has been businesses and brands. And what's funny about that is like when a couple of years ago when Target was hacked, and I don't say Target being hacked was funny, but Target was hacked and they were able to exploit, I believe, 2.5 million credit card numbers and individual addresses. And part of that is like, wow, like the fact that our information and data is stored on their servers is a little bit scary for us. Well, when we move into Web3, one of the great parts about that is that we get to control our information and our data. The problem with that is that when I worked at the Pentagon and I worked in cybersecurity, and over all of these years, the number one vulnerability in all of this space is not the Chinese, not the Russians, it's not your next door neighbor kid who's you think is hacking your Wi-Fi. It's actually us as humans, right? It's our, accidentally clicking on a link. It's us putting a password into something that we shouldn't have, put a password into. And so with a move towards what is being referred to as decentralization, we are taking back control. But with that control, kind of like what Uncle Ben said to Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. And part of that is if we want to control everything, our passwords, the keys to our kingdom, well, that is something that lives in what was referred to as a digital wallet, which is what we use in Web3. The problem with that is we control everything. So there's no phone number to call up to reset our password or to change things. We have to actually have all of those keys ourselves. And if you think about it like you're driving an automobile, there's a master key, and then there's like the key that you used to be able to give to your valet, or the subset of keys. We have the master key and we have the subset of keys. And the beautiful thing of that is we don't have to worry about Target getting hacked or Facebook exploiting our information. The bad news of that is if we accidentally leave that master key at a kitchen table or at a restaurant that we're at, someone can then take that car and drive away with it, much like they could in this Web3 space. So although it's a beautiful thing to shift the power and the control, we have to just recognize with that power and control also comes a layer of risk on things that we can do individually. And right now, unfortunately, I think it's a product of the early adoption side of the house. There are a lot of people, scammers and hackers that are looking at this new space, recognizing that many of these things are new to us on how we manage them. And they look at that as an opportunity for them to make some money and take advantage of us. But I think, unfortunately, no technologies that I believe since the beginning of time has ever stopped bad people from doing bad things, or stupid people from doing stupid things. And so I think that's part of it, is just like educating, hopefully building in some parameters in some of these tools that we have. I'm working, I've submitted a couple papers to a couple of the security tools and saying, hey, I would love to see these things changed based on things I've seen in the past to help protect us from ourselves. Because weirdly enough, in the Web3 world, we can't blame anyone else. We can't say Facebook gave away our data. We can't say that someone else, if someone hacks us or someone gets access to, our things in Web3, the only real person to blame is us. And I can tell you that's a little scary and it's a little bit off-putting. And, and I share this just because it's important to kind of realize that, it is happening to people of all walks of life. My wallet was compromised on March 12th. I've worked a decade in cybersecurity for the Department of Defense. I take a lot of pride in what I'm doing, but I also happen to be busy. I have 3 daughters. I kicked them off my computer to stop playing Roblox so that I could go on and purchase this NFT. And unfortunately, I didn't take the 10 seconds that I needed to take to make sure that the button that I was clicking was actually doing what I thought it was doing. And unfortunately, gave someone access to my wallet that shouldn't have had it. And so I say that not to scare you off, but just to say that, it's going to happen to the best of us in this space. And the best we can do is just kind of learn and educate and hopefully, teach these tools how to help us protect ourselves as well.
Yeah, Brian, you share a lot of that on your podcast. And I would recommend for those of you watching us, write this down, NFT 365. That is the podcast that Gina and I listen to. Brian really gives a lot of good information. And Brian, you do it in plain English too. You know, you'll say, here's the term, and you talk about it. And I love the way you're talking about that, security and what we need to be aware of and working with it. And really, it's about people working together. One of the things you like to say a lot that I really enjoy is that we is greater than me, and focusing on the group and us working together. You say something I really want, since we got you here, we want to hear from you on this. You say the future of innovation is collaboration. Tell us a little bit more about that. I like the sound of that.
Yeah, I appreciate the kind words and the shout out. Doing a daily podcast. This is my 8th podcast, but my first daily one. And it's been one heck of a journey. Today is episode 263. So 263 days in a row. Putting up a podcast episode has been, it's been interesting. It's been a lot of work. I'm very blessed. I have a team of 14 people here that support and kind of help us with that project. And it actually comes a lot into that we is greater than me idea. If we look at the world today, some of the most innovative companies in the world, a lot of them innovate in kind of I would say not only a silo, but innovate based on kind of the borders and the opportunities they've had. But I think one of the the byproducts, especially coming out of the pandemic, was that we also recognize that being able to work from wherever we are, being able to connect with people no matter where they are, opens up new possibilities and even new avenues to innovate. And I think when we think about what does the future look like, a lot of the innovation that has happened, everything from the iPhone versus BlackBerry versus Android, a lot of that was happened in their own little silos. But imagine if we removed those silos and we were able to kind of operate in these ways of either open source, sharing, or even kind of growing on top of each other. So I think I permanently believe that the future of business is community and the future of innovation is collaboration. And that's really powered through this idea of Web3, because things can be authenticated online, it's no longer about stealing someone else's data, right? We've seen this since social media and digital has existed, where someone will post something online, someone else will take it, copy it, and run it and say, hey, I was the first one. How do you say you're the first one? Well, in this Web3 world, everything is validated and authenticated online, and we can say who was the first one that created this, this innovation, or who's the first one that came up with this, protocol. And all of that is, there's no arguing, right? It'll have a hash, it'll have the date and the time and where it happened. And I think that element should allow collaboration to hopefully flourish in a world that isn't limited by our borders, or even where we live in the world, or even like the time zones that we are at. I think I'm a big fan of like artificial intelligence and a lot of this like exciting new technology, not to replace us as humans, but to actually allow us as humans to focus on the things that we do best and replace some of those mundane tasks and things that we've been doing just because we had no other alternatives. So that's where I look at innovation and collaboration. I think we really haven't even seen the true power of collaboration yet, but Web3, I believe, is going to be the gateway for making that happen.
That's so good, and we're getting a lot of great comments in the chat. So keep it coming, guys. A lot of Brian Fanzo fans out there for sure. Okay, so with this collaboration, Brian, one of the things that excites me so much is that with our communities, our organizations, our companies, that we're going to be able to implement some of these technologies such that our folks feel more invested. That's where the employees and all the different stakeholders, as well as our customers. So if you could take us through how that could happen, and specifically with social tokens, creator coins, and NFTs versus fiat currency. And if you could explain each of those as you go along.
Sure, I would be happy to. And if all of those things sound foreign to you, just know 2.5 years ago, they sounded pretty foreign to me as well. So you aren't alone in that journey. And I like to say we're all getting started together. You're not early, you're not late. We're all just getting started in this whole, in this mindset shift. But I launched a social token. It's the ADHD coin. Actually, it's what my username there is at the end of my username is the ADHD coin. I launched that about 18 months ago. And the idea for me was, when it was brought to me, was, what if you could build a Patreon or a Kickstarter type model, But rather than it being transactional, it could be about growing the greater whole. Now, I will tell you, my first thought was like, well, I'm not here to create a pyramid scheme. I believe those are illegal, and that's not really how I look at community building. And when I started to break it down, this idea of which creator coins or social tokens, if you think of it this way, it is about creating the more coins and more these coins are in circulation, the greater the value that they have. But what it allows you to do is actually be a part of something as something grows. And I think a great example of that is maybe a band, your favorite band, or even if you let's say you read a book and you loved a book early on, way before anyone else you ever heard of the book, and all of a sudden the book and the author become more popular. They turn that book into a movie. Well, imagine if you, as you were reading the book many years earlier, if you were given a token or an NFT, validating that you were a part of that, and the value of that NFT would grow as that author or as that book or as their series grew. And so, like for me, as a music, as a fan of a lot of bands, there's a couple of bands that I've been part of their fan club since 2003, 2004, and many years later they became famous. They're household names. And the funny thing about that is, as a fan early, the only thing I get is the same discount I've always got since I was there early. But in this idea of we is greater than me, what if it would we all benefited from their success? And I think it changes the dynamic. I like to think of it as a circle versus a triangle, right? So a triangle is about each person kind of growing the person above them. In a circle scenario, we would all benefit. So in that book scenario, each of us telling our friends about our favorite book, and the popular that book gets, the more valuable it is that we were in earlier, or we were a part of that ecosystem. And so that's kind of what the concept of a creator economy comes into play. I know Joe Polizzi will be one that can kind of tie in that as well. And Joe and I actually launched our coins about the same month on the same platform. So we're very aligned in a lot of those same things. But for me, I will say it's changed my view on my audience and really building a digital community. And why that is because I've always struggled where if everything feels transactional, it is kind of like I'm just thanking them for what they're purchasing, and I'm building my own kind of ladder to the sky. And that's never been really something that's motivated me. I've really believed in that premise of the rising tide lifts all boats. But how have we been able to do that? Really, in the digital space, we really haven't. I know many people can, we've tried, we grow, put our money into content or communities, but it's still very transactional. And where we're moving towards is that rising tide lifts all boats. And so for my community, we have a little bit over 1,800 holders of our coin. And depending on how many coins you hold, gives you certain access and certain benefits. But it also opens up, more possibilities for, as we continue to grow. We were about 450 holders of the coin at the start of this year, and we've been very blessed to add another 1,400 holders or so into our community. And what is beautiful about that is it's not just me benefiting as the creator; it's the fact that everyone benefits by more coins being in circulation. And the best way to describe this compared to an NFT, an NFT is about scarcity and limited supply. A creator coin is about growing the total supply. So the more creator coins in circulation, the more value they have. If there's only 10,000 NFTs, then that's a limited supply compared to if there was 100,000 NFTs, their value wouldn't be there as well. So it's kind of it's two different mindsets, two different approaches. I will say the mindset that is key that I had to learn. It took me 8 months of having a coin to learn this. So for anyone that's kind of feeling a little overwhelmed, the piece that I had to wrap my head around was, how can I teach people the value of holding the coin versus transacting? Because I think this is a key component. When I just said, in my community, you get every Friday, we have what we call the 93 call. So if you hold 93 ADHD coins, you get to show up for a free call on every single Friday on Zoom. We ask questions, we talk about latest trends. The beauty of that is you're not sending me those 93 coins. You're simply holding them in your wallet. And my reward and perk for saying, thank you for holding these in your wallet, is that I'm giving this Zoom call. And so if you all of a sudden are like, you know what, I've got enough of that Zoom call, Brian's provided me value, I'm not going to tap into this anymore, you have the option to sell your coins or even sell your NFT for access. And so this is going to change how we sell online courses, how we sell online services, because the days of just selling something, hoping someone buys something, and then really just kind of hoping maybe we're going to sell them something again down the road, those are gone. And the days of us, if we can provide mass amount of value to a few amount of people, then that's going to allow us to grow kind of beyond that with this technology. And so if anyone's familiar with the 1,000 true fan model, I like to think of that as the essence of what we're all building here within Web3. Is it's really about 1,000 true fans, not millions of followers or millions of fans. It's how do I provide mass amount of value to the people that want it, and then also give people access that want to come in late, and those that were in early that may no longer value it, they can sell or they can transfer or give away what they have. And so for me, that's the most exciting part. And even within our community, people are offering up their goods and services via ADHD coin. So for someone that comes in our community, they're like, Brian, I don't want to buy coins because maybe the financial side of it's a little much, but they're like, you know what, I will trade my services or I will sell something that I have to someone in our community. They can send them 93 coins, and now they get to show up and be a part of the call. And we have a couple people in our community that have put $0 in, but they're active in sharing our podcast. They show up in our Discord every day and active in our community. They go to game night, and they've been able to accumulate those 93 coins and get access to this call. And so for me, it also removes some of that, like only the rich get richer or that 1% growth perspective. It does allow you to have different entry points for different people, because if you wanted to join the call this Friday, you could just go buy 93 coins today and jump on that call. Or if you were one that wanted to kind of earn them through our community, you have that option as well. And so creator coins and NFTs are both built on the blockchain and part of the cryptocurrency kind of ecosystem that exists out there. And I know it can be confusing. I know I was even watching the mainstream news the other day, and they were saying Bitcoin and cryptocurrency interchangeably. And I was like, hold on, Bitcoin is a type of cryptocurrency, but cryptocurrencies as a whole, there's thousands of different cryptos that are out there today. And so I just think some of the nuances, some of this can feel overwhelming. And it's unfortunate that some of it is just misinformation. So the fact that you're showing up here and you're part of this, for the week is just a step in the right direction, because the more we share kind of the right information and we give use cases, I think the more this becomes tangible and the more we can start activating in our communities.
Excellent. Well, so for just to clarify, and so people are out there asking, you're really demonstrating how the new world works. Instead of saying, and you may offer an opt-in later, but instead of what we normally do is we offer an opt-in. Please go get my magic bullet here and give me your email address. You're demonstrating that people discover you, they like you, they say, well, I may want to go get some of those ADHD coins. And what's an ADHD coin value today? Like just one coin?
It's like $2.25, I believe, at the moment.
Okay. So somebody can get into your ecosystem, into your world for $2.25. When has something like that happened in the past? That's what's beautiful and amazing. We saw you at NSA Central Florida, and after you spoke, during your presentation, you had talked about one of your NFTs. You've launched a couple of different versions of NFTs. And so yes. Afterwards, you didn't say, come buy my course. You shared that there's an opportunity that if someone wants to invest in the NFT, that you have big plans for later in November, which I'd love for you to share about that. So those of us who are interested bought an NFT at the program. And so people can do that. It's just, I love this new system. I love the way that it's so easy for people to participate and to get on board early in your success, just as the example you gave with the bands and the books and such. So for those who want to launch an NFT or a creator coin or a social token, and social tokens, I use social tokens, creator coins interchangeably. Do you?
Yeah, I do as well. And Joe Polizzi and I have had many discussions on it. I don't think either one of us can agree on which one's better than the other in that version. I think we're still a little early in that discussion. Okay.
So interchangeably there. And then which of those, though, for most organizations, for most communities, let's say that people have a membership where they're collecting $100 a month right now and they want to convert to, say, a membership, would they do an NFT first? Would they do a social token first? Which makes more sense?
Well, I take a lot of pride in being one of the very few creators that has both. And so I can share this from a place of just my own experience. I know that a lot of creators have launched creator coins, and there's a lot of NFTs in the space. Not a lot of people have kind of dabbled in both. And I see some of the questions coming on the side, which I think is an important, conversation. The big difference being, creator coins as a whole, it's about, growing the community as, not only people buying additional coins to get additional value, but it has a much lower, entry point, and there's not a limited amount of them, right? So let's say you launch only 1,000 NFTs. Well, the only amount of people that can participate are 1,000 people, right? So that does have value. So when you're thinking about launching an NFT, that idea of supply and demand comes beautifully into this conversation, where I don't have to serve everyone. I can serve a few amount of people. And if those people no longer want the service, or maybe they're changing their mind, or they maybe don't have the time, they can sell their access. You as a creator get a percentage of that sale, and then the next person kind of comes in. And so that's kind of that shift. And I did see the comment about, is this like buying stock in yourself? I don't believe it. I don't think of it as stock in an individual. Rather, what I like to think of it is, what if we were all contributing to one pie, and the more people that we brought in, the bigger the pie got for everyone? It's not about building just something for one individual or one creator. And a great example of that is if someone came in today and let's say bought $40,000 worth of the creator coin of ADHD coin. So the coin that I created it, I launched it. But if someone came in today and bought $40,000 of that coin, they would have just as much interest or just as much reason for that success as I do. Just happens to be that I'm the one that named it and created it. And so there isn't like a, hey, I own this is my thing, I'm the only one that benefits. Now in NFTs, the way that this works is that when you launch an NFT, those that are buying it, of course, that money goes directly to that team that's launching it. But from there forward, you technically have 1,000 or 10,000 owners, and they are owners in the project, owners in what you're building, and they also have the ability to buy it, to sell it, to give it away. And so to answer that question kind of around, NFTs or creator coins, I like to think of it as like, how do you want to present the opportunity to your community? It's either one, a limited supply with this exclusive access, or an unlimited supply with levels of access. I've had the opportunity to take on both of them, and I'm very transparent. It was early on. It was very hard for me to wrap my head around how do I continue to give value with the coin, while also dropping an NFT and understanding the NFT side of the house. Now, NFTs are really built with, we talk about the photo a lot, right? The image that everyone's seen. Jimmy Kimmel owns a Bored Ape. There's lots of musicians. Madonna owns a couple of those. Well, that's like the extreme, like 1%. That's like, when you're talking about technology and you mentioned Apple, it's like a lot of that, the bigger side of the house. But if you think about it in this sense, it's much more than that image. Because really what is underneath of that are promises that the founder is making based on you holding that NFT. And if you think about it in our businesses, that's pretty much what we're making to our clients and customers. We're making promises. We're promised that we're going to show up every Friday for our consulting call, or we promise that we're going to deliver you training that's going to get you to this mark. The beauty in the NFT space is if we deliver on our promises, people aren't going to want to sell or remove, and then the value of that goes up. Compared to, and I know, as a speaker, this is always like one of the frustrations that I wish someone would have told me before I got into speaking, was that, like you can give the greatest presentation of your life to a client and you get off the stage and you're on to the next business development because that client's like, thanks, we don't book the same speaker every 3 years, give us a call in 4 years and we'll let you know if we want to hire you. What's beautiful about that is, like, let's say that you could actually sell an NFT for that, what you're delivering. As long as you continue to deliver on your promises, it gives them a reason to hold on to that value. And like, I see things like your gym membership will be given as an NFT, because a gym has a finite amount of people that can actually that can sign up for a gym membership. Well, the cool thing about it is, if you were comparing 3 gyms and you're like, which one should I go to? Rather than having to look at like reviews and things that are out there, what you could assess is, well, one has 15 NFTs for sale, one has 50, and then one has 500 NFTs for sale out of their 1,000. Well, you realize that apparently they're not delivering on their promises if 500 people are wanting to get out of their membership, right? And we also have to factor in, we all know how it works. We sign up for the gym membership in December, January, and by about March and April, we like, why do we do this again? But if you think about that, it gives us an ability to demonstrate outwardly, like, what is the value? Because in that gym, that only 15 people are willing to sell their membership, apparently everyone else is so happy that they don't want to sell their access that they have. And so it actually really does reward those that are actively delivering and really coming through on the promises that they have with their customers or their community that they have.
Yeah, Brian, we really appreciate what you're explaining here, because this is a game changer. Those of you listening to this, think about what's happening here. We're changing a whole lot, and now is the time to get the education. Get out there, and as Brian says, do your own damn research. You do need to do that. Do the study, get out there and learn it, and things like this is good, because really what it does, Brian, I want to tap into something you've said that I really enjoy. You said the NFTs are providing a way to choose your own adventure. It's giving people the way to live their life. We talk a lot about the concept that's near and dear to our hearts of live and let live. Do whatever you want. Just don't harm others. Don't take their stuff. Make nice with all the other kids out here on the playground. And this is really part of what you're talking about. Tell us a little bit more about what you mean by choose your own adventure and how that relates to NFTs.
Yeah, sure. And I appreciate that, that callback. And I think, even in this, in the world that we've been living in today, a lot of the things that drive our decisions are based on big businesses or platforms, or even the amount of information that we have at our disposal, or even the amount of information that someone has on us, right? I will say, I love when I'm on my Facebook feed and Amazon has a targeted ad to remind me to I didn't check out of my thing. I love that. I'm like, oh, thank you. I forgot. Like that's something that I love. But the idea of, like, what if we were able to determine, like, how things were served up to us, or where they were served up to us, or even how our data was shared? To me, that's like, it might sound like a pie in the sky. Like, we're dreaming, Brian. We've already given out so much of our data and information. Well, that's actually what led to this innovation. The problem became, well, all of this information and data is out there. All of these things are, in separate, file folders. Like, if you want to prove that you graduated from a college and you don't have your degree printed out, and let's face it, people can fake that part of it. Like, where we should be able to leverage, digital components or, technology to validate some of the things that we've done. But on top of that, it also should give us the opportunity to decide where we share things, when we share things. And that's where this choose your own adventure comes in, where we can actually take back some of that control and decide, okay, I want people to know this information about me or have this access. And then in other cases, we're like, you know what, there's nothing, they're not giving me anything for this data information. Why should they have it? And that, it includes everything from, the beauty of this conversation is that, the days of just getting someone's email address are kind of over, right? I think we can all agree. Like, I don't know anyone ever that I know that said, please give me more email. Like, nobody is signing up for more email. And it has a lot to do with just kind of like the way that we use that to access people. But what if you were able to turn that on? Let's say you were looking for, a house upcoming, and in your own wallet, in your own information, you were able to kind of activate, like, hey, here's what I'm looking for, and here's my experience, here's my history on loan payments, and almost really disrupting everything from our credit scores, how we even think about loan payments or that kind of transacting. And it doesn't even have to be cryptocurrency. It can be really this shift to, how do we prove trust in a digital age? And I think that's where that choose your own venture comes. And right now it's hard, right? Let's face it. There are a lot of people that can fake it till they make it. There's a lot of people that build fake accounts, scam artists. It's a world we're living at. But the beauty is, what if we were able to remove that? And I will tell you, we can even remove it. Let's say the next designer handbag that you buy. Maybe, Terry, you're purchasing a gift, right? And you're going to buy a designer handbag. Well, how do we make sure that when we give that designer handbag, that it's validated that it is the authentic bag? It's not one that we bought on the streets of New York that is a knockoff. Well, there really wasn't a way to find that, right? We'd have to look for it. But in this age, we're and this technology is already being built and deployed. We're seeing NFTs associated with physical items. So like your car or your digital handbag. What is beautiful about that is if you want to sell that or give that to a friend, you can transfer that NFT that is with it, and it now adds validity and validation to the things that we're purchasing. And so it removes things like ticket scalping. I went to a concert with my daughters last year, and we went up to the door and they scanned our tickets and they said, nope, you can't get in. Your tickets have already been used. And I was like, I don't think they have. I'm standing outside. They're going. And what someone had actually done is someone had hacked into their system, printed out all the tickets that were already purchased and sold them on the secondary market. And so technically that event had double the amount of people for those individual seats. Well, what if those were given to us as an NFT? Well, they're permanently on the blockchain. They're in my wallet. And therefore, whenever I go to scan it, there is no middleman. There is that validation exists. And so that element of like removing the copycats or the people that are stealing our information is exciting. And we're going to see it with our cars. Like very soon, I would say within the 3 years, every car that you buy will have an NFT associated with it, because it'll have your proof of ownership. It'll have the dealership. It'll have all of that information stored, associated digitally. And so then I know we can't do this today, but I remember my dad telling me all the days about rolling back a speedometer and like kind of like being able to manufacture some of the things that existed. And so for me, this like validation or authenticating digital assets as well as physical assets is going to really allow us to kind of benefit as a society, because we're going to have to produce less cars. We're going to have less people that are worried about scams or less need to prevent some of these things that today are just kind of like a byproduct of our society.
Yeah, I think that's excellent. And I'm noticing here in the chat, we had a question from Deborah Jason. She says, I'm still confused. Why would a car or concert ticket be an NFT versus a social token creator coin? Yeah, I think Deborah, you're hitting the nail right on the head with questions that a lot of us will have. Brian, how would you answer Deborah?
So from an NFT perspective, NFT is a non-fungible token. So there is only every car has a VIN number. That VIN number is technically the identification of the non-fungible token that is that car. There's only one of those cars that has that exact makeup, because even though we have a lot of the same model, there's only one of those cars. If I lent you my car and you came back with a different Jeep, it's not the same as if you came back with my actual Jeep that has my VIN number. And so that's why an NFT would be associated, because it is a unique identifier to a unique product. Now, if I was buying or selling, or we were exchanging something that was not unique, then that would be where the creator coin comes in. So much like if I gave you $10 and you went and spent my $10, the $10 bill I gave you, and you came back and gave me $10 you got out of your bank account, it's still the same $10 to me. And so that's where creator coins work in, where the transactions or even the conversation is around fungible items. And then when they're non-fungible, as in they are exclusive, there's only one of that actual individual thing made, then that would be an NFT that is associated with it.
Yep. And the whole thing comes back to blockchain. Dorothy Villegas had a question here about how do we prove trust in the digital age? Blockchain. Blockchain is immutable. You cannot change it. So as you said, Brian, we know that Brian bought that wonderful baseball cap he's wearing at a given time for this amount of money from someone, and there was a transaction. And if that's stored in a record that anyone can see and it cannot be changed, that changes everything. It's changing our whole society, the way that we're going to do books, the way we'll be doing real estate, cars, all of that is just amazing. And let's see, and we got a question here from Lynn Rose. How will quantum computing threaten security to current Web 2, but also Web 3? Doesn't it still have it potentially become hackable? And Web 2 is massively more hackable with quantum, right? Very good question, because that's important to quantum computing. I've got my ideas on that. Brian, what are your thoughts?
Well, hi, Lynn. Great to see you. It's been a while. I think when we think about centralized anything, really central, the biggest weakness, when we were working, even in the Pentagon, as much as the work that we were doing with, securing all of the different nodes, the thing that we were working towards every day was how do we remove a single point of failure or a centralized location of anything, right? And in Web 2, the reason hackers aren't targeting us as much is because we only have our own individual information, our own individual data. The reason that they are, they are targeting a Target or a Facebook or Amazon, or I think one of the ones we just saw, just recently, one of the, I think Foot Locker had their records exploited, is because all of that data is living in one location, and in a way can really just be kind of removed. And I'll take it even further than the quantum attacks. Think about this from a we could even go to a terrorism attack or someone that has malicious intent, right? The beauty of the blockchain, the way the blockchain has worked has been created, and to this day, knock on wood, at this moment, it is unhackable at the moment. I hate saying even that word coming out to me sounds a little scary, because it's like as soon as we say something is 100% anything, but 99.9% unhackable at the moment. But the thing about it is that there is zero way to turn off the blockchain unless the entire world's internet was all out at once. The entire world's internet. That's the only way the blockchain would come down. But let's say right now in Web 2, if someone attacked a data center or a centralized repository or even Google Cloud or Amazon Cloud, and that went down, now there is a vulnerability there. There is an element that we could be exposed, because the way the blockchain works is these are all individual nodes, and no two nodes are ever talking to each other at the same time again. So this is so if you think about it this way, if I wanted to put something, I wanted to prove that I bought this hat, as Terry said, whenever I bought it, the computer, wherever I bought the hat from, would automatically mint that onto the blockchain. And it would say, this device at this location validates that this hat was purchased by this wallet address. Well, at that moment, there's two computers validating that, that information is happening. But the minute that information is there, the next time the information is accessed, two other random computers bring together that hash and give us that same data. And so it's never the same computers, never the same repository. Therefore, there's no centralized location. So in a quantum perspective, it does give us new possibilities of bringing in data and information without that security. Because I can tell you, when I worked for the government, I worked out of the Marine base here in Quantico in Virginia, and there were some things that we had the technology to test, but unfortunately the security risk of bringing all of that information into one place, even just for testing, was too great. We couldn't test because of just the chance of something bad happening. In this world, the ability for us to allocate all that data into one place so that we can test actually doesn't have that single point of failure. And so from a security perspective, it is a beautiful thing in that realm. But I also will say, a lot of we don't really know the limits of something until they're tested or there's enough attention there, right? Like most people would have said 4 years ago that crypto is pretty secure, until they realized that all of a sudden there was so much money in crypto. The people that are really smart and good at hacking and social engineering, well, they started paying their attention to this space, and all of a sudden exposing these vulnerabilities that have always been there. And so, everything from, don't use your same password for your banking as you do your email. That's still the same world we're going to live in the Web3 world. But the difference being, the data and information is going to be stored in our control versus being stored at a Google Gmail account and Wells Fargo Bank. And so there is something really exciting about the ability to use some data and information in ways that we never have before, because we're not required to centralize everything in this whole blockchain technology.
Brian, one of our community members, Pat Iyer, has asked, does ADHD stand for Attention Deficit Hyperactivity Disorder? And if so, why is this the name for your coin? I know you're very passionate about this, so what a great question, Pat. Thank you.
Yeah, I appreciate that, Pat. Yeah, so I was diagnosed 10 years ago, a little over 10 years ago, ADHD. I'm also the proud dad of 3 little girls, but my middle daughter was diagnosed ADHD at 9 years old, as well as dyslexia, as I am was diagnosed as well. And for me, it's a day that changed my life. I've always been successful in my career, every job that I'd ever done, but I was always often caveated by saying, Brian, imagine if you just paid more attention, or you didn't talk so much, or imagine if you just, and like I openly say, like, for me, reading a book is something I've struggled with my entire life. And it was very frustrating because I as one would be like, I'm really good and I accelerated a lot of things. yet a mundane task or something as simple as reading is something that I've always struggled with. And so the day I got diagnosed was the day I just realized I wasn't broken, I was just different. And so for me, part of what I've kind of taken on my own, hopefully to help remove the bias and the stigma around ADHD, the fact that, every single time I'm introduced on stage, it's the ADHD superpowered Brian Fanzo. And for me, it starts a conversation just much like the one that you're there. And the reason I named the coin there was actually, Pat, for the exact reason that you asked the question. For me, when I was thinking about naming the coin, we had to name it. It had to be 3 letters to 5 letters long. My last name is Fanzo, so I could have easily gone with a Fanzo coin. I wanted to make it more community-based. And for me, I believe we all have our own individual superpowers. And when we tap into that, I believe that's really where we accelerate as humans. And mine happens to be being able to tap in to my ADHD and help kind of build my world around it. And so I've been advocating for mental health awareness, as well as really just removing biases and stigmas around everything in neurodiversity. And that's where the ADHD comes in. And I appreciate you asking the question, because it allows me to hopefully maybe open an eye or start a conversation with some that aren't as familiar with what's going on in that space. So thank you for that.
Yeah, powerful there. I was diagnosed with ADHD, I guess, in my 30s, and it's just something that a lot of entrepreneurs have, I believe, because we're interested in all these different things and we need to focus, and we can hyper focus when we're really passionate about something, when we're really interested in something, and then otherwise it's hard to maintain that focus. At least that's what I've experienced. Brian, as we wrap up here, I'd like to ask you, as community leaders, business owners, what should we be doing? What are the steps that we could be taking to get ourselves ready to tokenize our communities or our businesses? And when do we know that we're ready?
Well, that's a great one. I love that question. And yes, we all have different shades of ADHD, which I think is also not everyone has ADHD, but we all have different shades of things that show up. And I think there's a lot of misnomers, right? When people say that we can't focus, I'm like, I have no problem focusing. I just can't regulate my focus as well as most. And so I have to set up things in my life that help me with those type of things. But that idea, I believe right now we are early, right? We can't mistake in this. And so if this is overwhelming or seems like I don't have the time to kind of rebuild, what I recommend is what you're doing already. We're already showing up and listening and learning. And the things that we have to start to think about, and this is something I stress a lot on the podcast, is I believe in this space more so than anything I've ever done in my career, the ability to be a collector or an investor or someone that is an owner of an NFT before you create your own cannot be understated. And this is coming from press the damn button. Like, that's the keynote that I've given for my much of my career. And I tell people, just get out there and get started. Don't wait for permission. But in this space, there is something really kind of transformational in the idea of what does that journey look like? How do I get it? And now, if the financial thing can be a little wrong, it doesn't mean you have to have a financial one, right? Some of the events that I'm actually helping Disney launch their very first NFT for upcoming event next month at the social media conference at Disney World. And all of the attendees are going to get their own NFT that's customized for that event. And they're going to get only those that have the NFT will get access to the recordings afterwards. They will also get an exclusive, shirt or merchandise. And then at next year's event, they will actually have something that will be there for those, VIP members that own that NFT. And so there's the opportunity to kind of discover NFTs, be a part of things. We're going to see it. The Olympics is, a conversation I've been having for a good while. I get to work, building some strategy on how the Olympics are going to allow us to support maybe some of our favorite amateur athletes by buying their NFT on, things like the fencing or, the swim team where they're, maybe they're not given as much publicity. And so the opportunity to kind of find those 1 or 2 unique use cases that are out there and just kind of, investing in that, thinking of it, I like to think of those early NFT purchases is you're investing in your learning, you're investing in the understanding of some of, the nuances that are out there. And then the last part of it is just recognize that it is a change, and the technology is coming, the mindset is coming, but I think more so than anything else, keeping an open perspective to what's possible and not letting a bad example or one use case or something that makes mainstream news, cloud the idea for me it's much more than a Bored Ape or a crypto punk or the pictures and things you hear online. It's the idea of, what if we took back that control? What if we were able to manage and control our own data? And what things would we be able to do, or even kind of tap into? And I think there's a lot of side hustles. There's a lot of things we're passionate about that we never thought we could monetize, because we're like, well, that's not my main thing. But I will tell you, there is someone that is selling. She has turned all of her cooking. She was doing cooking on the side, and everybody would ask for her recipes. Well, she turned her recipes into NFTs. And the interesting part of that is, now not only do her friends have it, but her friends are now wanting to share that NFT with others. And all of a sudden now she has a way of people kind of coming in. And you might be saying, well, Brian, can't they just copy that and share? Well, what is neat is you have to own one of her NFTs to get into her Facebook group that then she shares new recipes with. She gives you new behind the scenes. And so that one recipe has become really a ticket into her world. And she was able to leave her full-time job and is now tapping into something she's been doing for 20 years and never made a penny on, but was something that always was something people wanted. And now she's able to do it. There's only 100 of the NFTs total, just so like people also recognize, it doesn't mean you have to have 10,000 fans. She has 100 people that really value it, and she's able to provide them, exclusive value, add on to it. And then some of them are like, you know what, I have the recipes. I don't have that time. They can sell it or gift it to a friend, and it's really expanding her community. So I think those are the use cases and the things that excite me. And I think we have to just kind of cut through a little bit of the news or the media, and a lot of it comes down, to just education as a whole.
Brian, you have introduced us to the future, to see where we're going. There are a lot of good things, and sometimes that future can be a little bit scary, but you've helped us to reduce a lot of that fear. And I know that you do that on a regular basis, as we mentioned with your podcast. Tell us a little bit more how someone can get involved with your podcast and follow you and stay up to date on what's happening.
Sure. Yeah. So, it is a podcast. It's a daily podcast that we're now top 25 in both Spotify and Apple Podcasts, which I'm very proud of, as I had 8 podcasts and none of them had nearly kind of the success this one has had. It is a daily podcast, so it can be a lot of content, a lot of information. So I'll give you a little bit of what we call alpha, which just means early information, is really what alpha is in the Web3 space. We are launching this week a sister podcast that is called Getting Started with NFTs. And so it's the 11 episodes or so, maybe a little bit more, in the order that I believe you should listen to them as you're getting started into this space. Because I know for people that were just sending them to a whole podcast of daily content, it's near impossible to catch up. And so that'll be something that will come out later this week. And it's, if podcasts aren't your thing and you're like, I'm not really into podcasts, we have a YouTube channel. So every one of our episodes are recorded on video. So you can just simply search NFT 365 out there on YouTube and check it out there. And we also even have, the Discord. We haven't really mentioned Discord is where a lot of the conversations happen in NFTs. But I will tell you, Discord is another whole pain and new platform, and it has its own difficulties.
Yes.
I went there kicking and screaming. I now love it. I will say I now enjoy it. We have a thriving community there, but I also know, for me, I didn't want a platform like Discord to prevent people from also learning about NFTs. So we have a Facebook group as well that is open for anyone that wants to join. You can just search NFT 365 on Facebook, and it's a Facebook group where I share some information, but you'll also be able to connect with others that are wanting to learn, and everybody's on all different stages of this journey. And the beauty of it for me is, now with the daily podcast and buying an NFT every day, I just get to kind of share this, openly with the community. So I hope everybody will check that out, and more things to come. It's wild. We're a couple of days away from our 100 days left for 1 year. And for anyone that's, I have ADHD, as we mentioned, and I never believed consistency was something that I was good at. 41 years of my life, I told myself, well, I can't be consistent. I have ADHD, and I'm now proving that even at 41, I can learn some new things and I can realize some things about myself. And it's been a journey, and now I can't even imagine, a day moving forward where I'm not doing a podcast episode. But thanks so much for having me. I look forward. You have an amazing lineup of guests this week. I know each and every one of them, and had the pleasure of knowing what they can share and put out into the space. So, everyone here is in for a treat, no doubt.
Brian, thank you. We really appreciate you being here. Not only are you educational, but inspirational. You're helping us in many different ways, letting us see, hey, we can do this. Okay, I need to learn a little bit more, and there's ways to do that. That's why you have the podcast and the new one. Congratulations on that. And it's just always good. And those of you that don't know Brian, get to know this guy. Get to know him. I've seen him on stage. I've seen him off stage, just working with him one-on-one. He's genuine. He's the real deal. This is a man who is a gentleman, and he is a person that I am honored to know and to have as my friend. Hey, don't stop now. We've got a lot more videos out there for you about freedom and liberty, living the life of an entrepreneur who believes in live and let live. Matter of fact, here's a way you can make a positive difference in the world. Like this video, subscribe to the channel. That lets the algorithms know, those wacky algorithms know, that hey, people like this kind of thing of live and let live and doing it in a peaceful way. Thanks for being here with us, and we're looking forward to hearing from you.